Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my Night Court stoneware mug today. I absolutely love stoneware mugs. I know I say that like every time, but they really keep your drinks hotter longer, I'm convinced, and they're just fantastic and handmade, and I love mountains and stars. It's like a chalice, like a pint, a half a pint. Y'all, I have so many videos I need to film today, it's unreal. But two of them are going to be my best and worst books I read in 2022. So I will have videos for each of those, but right now we're gonna do the best books that I read in 2022. So kind of what I did for this video is I pulled my different ratings from Goodreads of the books that I've rated over the years, and I did, for the best, I did all my 5 stars and then some 4.5 stars. It equaled out to about 20-ish books, and so what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do my top 10 books, and then I'm gonna do some honorable mentions, but I don't know if I'll do all 20 just because that's a lot of books right now. So we're gonna look at the best books that I've read in 2022 with top 10. These are gonna be in no particular order except for my ratings of them. So 5 stars, and then we'll go into the 4.5 stars. Which is kind of funny that it can be one of the best books I've read this year and not be a 5-star, but you know. Oh, Legend. You can't nudge the camera, buddy. I know. He's on squirrel patrol right now. He just saw one a few minutes ago and it was an adventure. So he's trying to make sure none others are threatening our house. Oh my gosh, you gonna start filming right now? Yeah, you wanna take over? So it's not going to be in any particular order other than, 5 stars and 4 stars. So with that being said, let's just see what my top books were. So the handful of these that I'm going to talk about in the beginning are going to be 5 stars, and then when I get to the 4.5 stars, I'll let you know. So all of these that I'm going to talk about are 5 stars at the moment. So the first one is All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. This is the Goldsboro edition, and I absolutely love this book. 5 stars. Could not recommend this enough. I love the morally gray characters, I love the magic system and the high stakes of the magic and having to use spell rings, and the magic can deplete you and could even kill you if you don't know how to use it right. And so this was an absolutely fantastic book. I rave about this all the time. If you haven't read it, absolutely pick it up, it's fantastic. Kind of like Hunger Games with magic, where these 7 families are competing in a tournament that it's time for the tournament when there is a blood moon. And then they're magically bound to this tournament. So it is such a good time. It's creepy, it's great, it's high stakes. Read it. If you can't already tell, I'm not gonna be sharing a lot of in-depth thoughts about these books because I've already talked about them probably all year. We're just gonna be giving short little snippets of why I love them. Next would actually be The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This one kind of took me by surprise. I had several of you comment that you thought I would like it and you think it would be really up my alley and that I would just really enjoy it and it'd become a favorite. And I was surprised to find out that this was a favorite read of 2022. It was surprisingly great for the entire setting being in a prison. It is so intriguing and amazing. Pretty unique. Elemental magic is involved in this system, but the elemental magic is kind of with the royal family, so commoners don't really have that or don't usually have that. And essentially you're following the main character as through a series of circumstances, ends up having to complete a trial by ordeal, which basically means she has to face the trials for all 4 elements, air, water, earth, fire. And if she succeeds, she wins her freedom of her lifelong sentence. If she fails, she dies. And most people just die. This was so good. The twists and stuff were meh. I think some people really liked it. I think I could guess it. Or the author kept you so in the dark by not giving me any information that she's like, surprise! And then it's just there's no way that could have been hidden. But besides that, this book was so good. I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed it and how well it was done for only being in one setting the whole book. I just thought the author did a fantastic job, and I'm really looking forward to following more of this author's works in the future. So absolutely this one. And of course, A Rogue of One's Own by E.B. Dunmore. This was probably my favorite of the League of Extraordinary Women series. I think that series is one of my favorite series of all time. It's just so good for being a feministic Regency romance. It is fantastic. There are so many good elements to this. The politics, the dialogue between really hard topics, the relationship between the characters, the banter between the characters. It's just all so fantastic. And this one was absolutely on there. This was my favorite book, as I said, of the series so far. I loved following Valentine and Lucy. They're my favorite, both of them. She's my favorite girl, he's my favorite guy. So it was just a fantastic read for me. If you are interested in this series at all, read it. I will scream this from the rooftops. Read it. Next would be Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I, of course, had heard the hype about this and thought I would love it, but you never know, you know? There are books that I thought I would love that I didn't like, and so you get kind of nervous about that. But I did really love this book. I expected certain aspects of this book to be more prevalent, that they weren't, but I think they will be in future books. And had one thing not happened at the end of the book, this would not have been a 5-star because I would have been so mad that it led you to believe a certain thing and didn't follow through, but it kind of did follow through. So that is why it became a 5-star of mine, and I think it does live up to the hype. I can understand if it's not your speed or you just don't really like it, but it is a Norse fantasy. It's very hard to describe the plot. Not going to describe it very much. Excuse his ear, he's just going to be here. But basically, these gods were thought to be dead or are dead, and then maybe they're not so dead. And there's 3 different perspectives that are going on these journeys for very different reasons. Revenge, glory, whatever it would be. John Gwynne is probably, at this point in time of my reading journey, he's probably the best author I've ever experienced writing combat. The way he writes combat is absolutely fantastic. You can picture it in your head. That's hard for me to do. I can picture some things, but for you to be able to paint a picture so clearly that I can see the fighting in my head, immaculate. So his combat is fantastic, and I can't wait to continue the series, but yes, this was absolutely a fantastic read. Next would be Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I thought this sounded absolutely hilarious, and I wanted it from the moment I heard about it in 2021, I don't know when. But I thought it was so funny sounding and just really intriguing. And then I was pleasantly surprised to find out I loved this, and it was such a good read. It was dark. It had really horrible elements of like abuse and stuff in here, while also being hilarious and morbid and amazing. And I highly recommend this if the premise is at all interesting to you. It's pretty short. It's got some dark humor that was just really up my alley, and I just really appreciate it. So this was just such a fun ride, a good time. It makes you feel good, even though it's very morbid and horrible, and the humor's dark, but I loved it. Next would be Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This has hype for a reason. This was my first Margaret Rogerson book that I had read, and I was so glad that I picked this one. The magic is so cool. The grimoires and the books, like having their own personality and like being little creatures themselves, was amazing. I loved, this is a very strange element, but I really loved that a lot of the magic was related or associated with the color green. And it just was very vivid in my head. While the book didn't really go, like towards the first part to the middle of the book, it was not going in a way that I was expecting at all, but it was fantastic, and the characters are lovable. It is a standalone. They have like a sequel coming out that's like a novella that's just kind of like a fun story after this story, but it's not like a series. I don't know. But anyway, it is a standalone for the most part. It was a fantastic world building, fantastic story. The magic was amazing. It was just so good. The characters were really well written. I loved it. It was fantastic. I understand why people rave about this. If you thought I would ever get through a video like this without mentioning Stephanie Garber, you're crazy. Of course, one of my favorite reads of the year and best of the year was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is book 2 in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and even though it is the second in a series, I still love it. This world is magical and enchanting and very whimsical. I think you have to go into this knowing it's going to be very magical and whimsical and over the top almost, and just strap in for a fun ride, because I think if you go into this thinking it's going to be very serious, and I'm not saying it's just like hilarious and silly all the time, there's dark elements to this. It is kind of like emotionally wrenching at times, but if you're going into this thinking it's going to be an epic fantasy like Shadow of the Gods, that's not what this is. Stephanie Garber has a way of writing that just makes me feel at home and happy and magical and just completely embrace the whimsy of this. And there's nothing, I've never found another author's works where every single one of her books just makes me feel warm and cozy while it also being gruesome and just fun and good. So this, of course, is absolutely one of my top reads. Can't wait to read the next one in 2023. I guess you can take one glance at this shelf, minus my Star Wars book right here, and see that I love Stephanie Garber. And look at these beautiful Caraval dust jackets. Oh, so cute. Next 5-star is Demon in the Wood by Leigh Bardugo and Dani Pendergast. This is, of course, a graphic novel of the Darkling prequel story. The Darkling is one of my favorite characters ever, and this was fantastic. The art style was fantastic. The story itself was great. It's expounded upon a little bit from the little story you get at the end of Ruin and Rising, and I loved it. It was fantastic. If this had been a series of like 10, I would have flew through them because it's just so good. I hope we get more Darkling content, but that may never happen. So I'm very happy to have read this. Read it if you like the Darkling or the Grishaverse. So those were all of the 5-star books, but I haven't finished out the top 10 yet. So we're gonna do 2 more in the top 10 and then some honorable mentions, but the rest of these in the video will be 4.5 stars. So number 9 in the top 10 would be Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio. While I did not give this 5 stars, this is an amazing book. It was so good, so fantastic. I loved it a lot, and I've heard that this is the worst one. So me loving it how much I did, and the premise and the tone and just everything about it, even though it was kind of slow, which is why I give it 4.5 stars. Knowing that this is the worst one just gives me such high hopes for this series. And I just think I'm gonna absolutely love it. Basically, the premise of this is, what if Anakin becoming Darth Vader was the correct choice? And it is a sci-fi space opera type of book, and it is so good. Following Hadrian Marlowe, who is gonna become a villain, is going to go dark. And I love villain origin stories, and this was so fantastic. If you've been hesitant about this series, I would suggest picking it up, and apparently you should read more than just the first book to really get a feel for it. It's going to be 6 or 7 books, so just know that also, and only the 5th book is out, which just came out in December, but it was so very good, very space opera, fantastic goodness. The next one I'll throw up on the screen because I can't remember where I placed my copy of this, but Rogue Protocol would be number 10 by Martha Wells. The Murderbot Diaries have been a series that I've absolutely fallen in love with. The first one was my favorite, I think, of all of them. The second one was also very good. But just this whole series is fantastic. And I put this one up here because this was one of the ones that I read that I gave a high rating of. It was so funny. I love Murderbot. I love the way he talks. I love the narration. I've been listening to a lot of these on audio book, and it's been fantastic because I love the narrator. I love how he brings Murderbot to life, and the horror of like having anxiety, or the horror of having to talk to people and not being social. It's just so good and so funny. If you are intrigued by this and you want it to be very action-based, I would say there's action in it. It's good, but it's not really the focus. It's more so Murderbot and interacting with humans, which is very uncomfortable for Murderbot, or really interacting with anything. Because even if it's other like robots or like sentinel things, if they have too much to say or too many like emotions, he's like, nope. So I don't know. Murderbot's fantastic, but if you're going into it thinking it's going to be this like really epic battle and a lot of action like that, that's not really what it is. It is more focused on Murderbot and his thoughts and his interpersonal relationships, however unwilling he may be to have them. But if you go into it just expecting like humor and a really fun ride, you will love it, I think. A couple of honorable mentions we'll just go through real quick. The sequels of the Prison Healer series, I think I rated both of them 4.5 stars, and the first one was 5 stars. That whole series is very good, so I would highly recommend you check it out. The Wisteria Society for Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. I thought I was gonna love this, but I went into it thinking it was gonna be really weird and quirky, and it is. Do not go into this with a serious tone. But if you're okay with that, it is a fantastic, fun ride. There's banter, there's hilarity. I laughed so much in this book. It's just goofy and quirky and weird and steampunk, but Regency. There's flying houses, it's steampunk. It's just so funny. So this was fantastic. Definitely an honorable mention. Escaping from Houdini by Kerri Maniscalco. I would say this one and Capturing the Devil, the 4th one in the series, I really loved, but we'll throw this one up there. So Escaping from Houdini is another honorable mention. I really loved the Stalking Jack the Ripper series as a whole, but this one was one of my favorites of the 4, and it just had a lot of like kind of carnival circus-esque things because it's a, they're on a ship and there's a traveling like performing illusionist type group, And so it was just a lot of fun, a lot of mystery, a lot of intrigue, a lot of banter, a lot of tension. I really enjoyed this with the underlying murders that they're trying to solve. It's gruesome, it's great. Highly recommend this series if you like forensic type things, but you want it to be a little bit more fantasy skewing, as in this probably would never happen in real life, but it's cool. It is modeled off a lot of actual murderers in history, which is awesome, and just tweaked and twisted a little bit. So this was a lot of fun. I was so happy to finish this series this year. I loved it. Again, not sure what this is at the moment, but another honorable mention would be One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This was fantastic. I know some people don't like it, and I know some people it was like their favorite book of the year. I think it was really, really good. The tarot magic was very intriguing and very unique. The way that the main character's abilities manifest is also really cool and horrifying. The nightmare-esque creatures and the different magic that is very spooky is definitely prevalent in this. Really, really cool. It's very atmospheric, very like gloomy, misty, dark forest type of atmosphere. I really liked that about this. Very like rainy. I feel like it was sunny sometimes, but I feel like overall, if I'm picturing this book, it's foggy, misty, rainy, dark. So that's good for atmosphere. There's parts of it that are hard to listen to, like knowing people are being mistreated for no reason, but I loved it and I cannot wait for book 2. And the last honorable mention will actually be These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. I liked These Hollow Vows, but I didn't love These Hollow Vows. But These Twisted Bonds, I don't know what it was, but I really liked it. I found myself really invested, getting kind of like emotionally tied up in it, really concerned about what was going to happen and not sure what was going to happen. I say that, and people I'm sure disagree with me on this, and that's totally fine, but I say that this is a love triangle that's actually done right, because I didn't truly know who the main character was going to end up with. And usually it's like one of them's very overstacked than the other, which you could probably argue for this case. But the character itself was written in a way that I didn't really know who she was going to pick. And it was stressful. Plus all of the other like politics and secrets and things that are like hanging in the balance was a little bit tense. So I did actually really enjoy this, and it took me by surprise because I liked These Hollow Vows, but I wasn't like, this is the best thing I've ever read. I love These Twisted Bonds and felt very emotionally tied up in it, so that's also an honorable mention. Kind of surprised me, to be honest. We'll just cut it off there. So those are the best books that I read in 2022. I think I'm going to do a battle of the books. I saw Emily Fox do this, and she saw somebody else do it, and I'm not sure who the original person was, but basically they do like a tournament bracket and they pit 2 books against each other, and then you see who wins, which is really fun because it could be 2 of your favorite books of the whole year, but they're pitted against each other, so you have to pick one of them, and seeing which book comes out on top. I think that would be fun, so I may do that soon. I probably won't be able to have it up in January, even if I film it in January, so it may be a little late, but I think it would be kind of fun, so we'll see if I do that. Let me know if you would like to see that. So those are my best books of 2022. Let me know if you've read any of these books or what your favorite book of 2022 was. But as for now, that is it for today's video. So please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.